You've got to see this. Senator Tim Scott came out the gates on The View and tore into the insults and race baits he had been getting from the ladies on the panel in the months prior. This is a video you don't want to miss because you're about to see a fighting side to Tim Scott that we've seldom seen before.
You are the first black senator elected in the South since the Reconstruction. That would be about 114 years. Yet you say that your life disproves leftist lies. And
Yes.
My question to you is, I'm the exception, right? You're the exception. Maybe even Miss Whoopi Goldberg is the exception.
Oh, she's definitely the
but we are not the rule. And so when it comes to racial inequality, it persists in 5 core aspects of life in the U.S. Economics, education, healthcare, criminal justice, and housing. At nearly every turn, these achievements were fought, threatened, and erased, most often by white violence.
Sunny Hostin leading with the words black and white in this offensive racial deconstruction of people let Senator Tim Scott understand what he just found himself in. It's easy to tell by the look on his face and that smug almost talking down to the senator who refuses to be a victim because of his skin color. But you know what's interesting? The View for some reason has a pretty testy history with Tim Scott's views, which for a lot of people on the far left don't align with what someone like that should think about race. Here's Joy Behar of all people trying hard to portray Tim Scott's conservative credentials as some kind of self-loathing or Republican appeasement as a black man, and understandably, there's nothing more offensive than that.
He's one of these guys who, he's like Clarence Thomas, black Republican who believes in pulling yourself by your bootstraps, rather than, to me, understanding the systemic racism that African Americans face in this country and other minorities. He doesn't get it, neither does Clarence.
Right.
And that's why they're Republicans.
I have to tell you the truth, Lawrence. While I am concerned about what they say about me, I'm actually used to it. These are the same voices over and over again that want to insult me because I have decided to think for myself.
Does no one see the irony here? Isn't this the same side of the political aisle that talks about things like mansplaining, yet Joy Behar is perfectly fine race-splaining to Tim Scott that he's a victim of some institutional racism when he's in fact living proof of beating the odds? When someone like him who comes from the most underprivileged class, being from a low-income household to be highly successful in life and public service? Perhaps we should take their word for America's strides in racial justice. But forget Joy Behar. I think the real reason Tim Scott decided to go into the lion's den on The View is because of some pretty outright racist things that Sunny Hostin has implied about him, including the idea that he's merely a front that the Republican Party has put up to brush American racism under the rug. She even went as far as tweeting at him a picture of the lead in the movie Get Out, which is a horror story that directly pits black and white people against each other in the plot.
One of the things I think about, and one of the reasons why I'm on the show, is because of the comments that were made, frankly, on this show, that the only way for a young African-American kid to be successful in this country is to be the exception and not the rule. That is a dangerous, offensive, disgusting message to send to our young people today, that the only way to succeed is by being the exception. I will tell you that if my life is the exception, I can't imagine.
But it is.
In 1975, there was about 15% employment in the African-American community. For the first time in the history of the country, it's under 5%.
40% homelessness.
And 50%
of
African-Americans, 50% of the folks in our community.
Yet 13% of the population.
You had the chance to ask the question. I know that I've watched you on the show that you like people to be deferential and respectful, so I'm going to do the same thing.
That is true.
Yes, Sunny, 114 years, and if you were to pluck a black person in the 1800s and drop them into 21st century America, they would think they've secured the American dream that had been promised to them. I know Tim Scott has been very vocal in his criticism of the critical race theory, and it's on that basis why. This is an America today where the black unemployment rate stands at less than 5%, which is the lowest it has been in 50 years. For the intersectional left, even black women have made great strides in empowerment, with 60% of them holding white-collar jobs. I can understand the frustration of someone like Tim Scott as being forced to become yet another avatar for the left's race-baiting politics.
You as a black man, and as one of the, are there 2 black
Senators?
Yeah.
Raphael
Or
Warnock.
you mean-
Raphael, that's
three now.
Three.
Okay.
We still count Cory Booker, okay?
We've got Booker and Warnock.
Cory and Warnock on one side and me on the other side.
That's three.
Yes.
But you yourself have talked about when the police stopped you.
Absolutely.
So how can you get your party to stop trying to stop the progression that people are making?
Yeah, so-
Because that's what I complained about when I spoke about it. I want you to come out and say, listen, the Republicans have these issues.
Whoopi Goldberg, as usual, is even more incoherent than the rest of the panel. Republicans stopping the progression that people are making. It's a statement devoid of substance, and I think deliberately so. When you can be vague and hazy about the language you use, there's no way you can pin down the idea or argue against it. That's exactly what the institutional racism that Sunny talked about is. It's not supposed to mean anything. It's merely meant to be a cudgel and a club to beat people with and get them to toe a certain social and political line.
Shall I come next to her?
Come on over here. Let's have a conversation.
Come on, ladies.
Sit, sir, sit.
Yes. So, let me give you a couple of short answers, as I was just talking with Anna about the fact that...
Yeah, your back looks pretty damn good from here.
Anyways, so the truth of the matter is that when you look at progress in the Senate, especially from the Republican side, African-American chiefs of staff on the Republican side, the only African-American female chief of staff was mine. The current only Hispanic chief of staff, who happens to be female, is mine.
This was honestly one of the more bizarre moments from the show, and you could just sense the slight tension between Sunny Hostin and Tim Scott, especially after he put her back in line earlier. Plus, if you've watched the entire show, there's at least 3 occasions where Whoopi Goldberg interrupts the senator for a commercial break while he's making a vital point. At one point, even the producer of the show came up to jokingly stop him. I have to say this was slightly tough to watch, but Tim Scott walked out the bigger man. Even though he's suspended his election campaign, he'll remain a voice of sanity in the years to come.